Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and this is the Earthworks podcast. I'm very excited to have back our wonderful sales agronomist down in Florida, Mr. Marshall Evans. And Marshall has brought to us an old friend, Andy Jorgensen, who has a resounding resume. And I don't think we have enough time, Andy, to get through this whole list. I'm very impressed. But I think I met you first when you were the president of the Florida Golf Course Superintendents at one of the association meetings, and it goes back a number of years. And I think you've been to one or two of our Soil First Academy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both of them were great times. Learned quite a bit each one.
That's what everybody says. We don't believe it at all. But you had to come back because there was so much stuff there. But I appreciate that, and I do. So you are at Top of the World Communities in Ocala, Florida, and it is a incredibly unique environment. There's 3 golf courses there. Walk us through a little bit about the uniqueness of this property that you're managing. And you are, let me make sure I get this right. You're Director of Community Maintenance Operations, which really is a very long title, and it really sounds exhausting. So it sounds like you're taking care of 1,000 homes and 3 golf courses and probably every old lady's petunia patch. And I don't know. I mean, walk through what the day-to-day is of and help everybody understand how wonderful this environment is. I know you have 3 golf courses there, and they're all pretty unique.
That's right. So on Top of the World purchased this property in 1976, started developing it around 1981. Basically, it's a 55 and over retirement community with a big portion of it being maintenance free. They built the first golf course, which was the Links Golf Course in 1981. It's basically a 9 holes out, 9 holes in, which is a unique design. You don't have the turn back at the clubhouse. So it makes it a little interesting. If you're only playing 9 holes, you got a long ride back in. That golf course, we renovated it in 2019, new irrigation, new greens complexes, tee complexes, bunkers, pretty much the whole 9 yards to, kind of bring it in for the next 20 years of development for the property surrounding that.
What's the name of that course?
What's that?
What's the name of that course?
That's called the Links Golf Course.
That's called the Links. Okay.
Yep. The Links Golf Course.
I wasn't sure if you were just calling it a links course or the links course. Sorry.
Well, it's a links style course, and so the name's
right.
kind of fitting for it.
Makes perfect sense. It's a good name.
That's right. Yep. And then in 1992, they added another 9 holes, which at the time was dubbed the North Course, because ironically, it was north of the Links Golf Course. So that created the 27 holes that they had at that time. And then in 1996, they added an additional 9 to the North Course and termed it the Tortoise and the Hare. So you think of your old childhood fable, the tortoise and hare, and which one wins. That name was actually chosen because when the original 9 was developed, home building was kind of at a tortoise pace. It was real slow. And when they added the second 9, home building took off at a hare's pace. So the Tortoise and Hare.
Is that really where the name came from?
That's where the name came from.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's pretty unique. Yeah. Not too many people know that story.
I was about to say, of all the times you've spoken at chapter meetings and told history, I haven't heard that one. So that's good.
Yeah. So then Candler Hills Golf Club is our newest golf course, opened for play in January of 2005. It is named after the soil type that it has, which is Candler sand. It's a very fine, almost zero organic matter in that soil. And it's a big rolling terrain. So Candler Hills, again, was named kind of after the property that it was built on. And we're actually set to be renovating that property next summer when it reaches that 20-year age to, revamp it, update it, regrass it, and bring it into, again, really the next 20 years.
That's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me about that sand. I mean, how you were you there when they built that? That was after.
No, I came in shortly after that course was built.
Okay.
About 10 months later. At first it was very, very challenging to grow grass. You think about growing grass on basically beach sand.
Right.
Um,
Is it real
no,
fine?
no water holding capacity, no nutrient holding capacity. When it dries out, it's very hard to re-wet. It gets hydrophobic. And, right away we started looking at, humic acids, wetting agents, organics, anything to improve the soil to
To dirty
continue
it
to be
up a
able to
little.
grow grass.
Yeah.
So, back then, we were using a lot of compost and a lot of, treated biosolids, anything really that we could get our hands on. And it took us about 5 years, but, we were really able to kind of turn the page on that, to where we weren't having to put out as much fertilizer, as
Right.
much
Right.
water to be able to sustain growth.
I didn't ask you this when we started, but how long have you been on the property?
So December of this year will be 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. When I got here, as I stated, Candler had just opened for play. There was 3 houses in that neighborhood. They were the 3 model homes, and now we have over 1,600 that have been built.
On just that golf course.
Just that golf course. Yep.
How
It's
many
crazy.
how many homes do you have on the whole property?
It changes every day. Around 12,000 or something.
Oh my God. You're
Yeah,
kidding
this,
me.
this piece of property, when it was bought, was just shy of 20,000 acres. Through some conservation, easements that we've provided, some sell off to the state, stuff like that. There's about 13,200 that was developable, and of that, we have about 6,500 left to develop over the next 20 years.
So how involved are you with the homeowners
Every day.
every day?
Yeah. So
Are you actually
part of my
maintaining?
job-
Is your staff actually doing maintenance at the houses?
Correct. So we do in-house maintenance on about 3,600 homes a week. So we have a staff of about 100 that is responsible for that on the landscape side. And then we have another roughly 2,000 homes that are maintained by us, but via contractor. So we oversee the contractor in that process as well.
Oh, so you at
And
least
then we
have
have
some
another
outside help.
company.
Yeah.
We have another company that is a for-hire landscape maintenance company for the other half of the neighborhood, where the homeowners are responsible for their own maintenance. So they hire us to maintain their yard for them.
So
Wow.
with that, Joel, you can imagine the maintenance facility, which I know I mentioned to you yesterday or this morning. I'm like, it is was it 2 years old now? 3 years old?
About 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
We've been in this
I
facility.
figured
now.
time was
Yep.
flying quicker than I wanted it to, but it's
Yeah.
massive. It's like its own city, town. It's incredible.
Yeah, Andy, we had Marshall and I had probably a 10-minute conversation. He's all juiced up about it. Tell us about it. I mean, I assume you designed it or you were involved in the design of this? How big is it? How many square feet?
So to kind of back it up, so in 2004, 2005, we built a maintenance facility that was really on the east side of the property. At the time, it was centrally located. It houses golf maintenance for the Candler Hills property, our internal building maintenance, and then our internal landscape maintenance. And over the years, we really just outgrew it. All of our development was heading west on the property. We really needed to build a separate complex for, really the growth that we've been seeing. So, I was tasked with obviously building this maintenance complex. It's not just a maintenance facility. It sits on 11 acres. It's 8 buildings, about 80,000 square feet under roof. We've got golf maintenance in a couple of buildings for 2 golf courses. We've got landscape maintenance in one of the buildings and fleet maintenance in another. And then our construction department actually joined us about 1.5 years ago in one of the other buildings, where they've got, I think it's 56 offices or something inside that building for all of our new home construction.
This is in your maintenance shop? All of that?
Yeah,
Or on the facility?
Yeah, it's again, it's 8 buildings. So,
Right.
everybody's kind of in one spot, which makes it really nice because
Yeah.
if you think about it, landscape, golf, new home construction, it's all, intertwined. We all work with
Integrated,
each
yeah.
other. So it's really nice to just be literally across the parking lot from each other.
Dude, you must be exhausted every day. I mean, I'm exhausted listening to this. I mean, that's just overwhelming how much stuff is on your plate. And I assume, as the director of community maintenance, this is all your baby. I mean, you're dealing with all the maintenance side of it. I assume you're probably not involved in the construction side of the homes.
No, not the home itself, but the landscape installation on the home
Really?
lots and of all the neighborhood common areas, as well as any commercial building we're building. We review and specify all the landscaping and supervise all the installation on that as well.
Wow, that's I'm like I said, I got pages of notes here already, and I'm just overwhelmed by this. Let me go back a little bit, Andy, and let me get some background on you. I know you were up in you were out in Kansas City for a while. Were you in the golf business then?
No, born and raised there, and moved to Conyers, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, when I was 7 years old, and
Are you
pretty
still a
much
Chiefs
grew up.
fan?
I root for the Chiefs. I kind of used to root for the Falcons a little bit. That's real hard to do, but kind of more of a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan now more than anything.
All right, you've gone into all right Florida, but that's too bad. I mean, I love the Bucks. I'm a big Chiefs fan, and Travis Hogan is a former student of mine and a dear friend. So I've always been a big Chiefs fan. You go to Georgia, and how did you get into this business? What got you into the golf side?
So we moved to a golf community, like I
When
said,
you were
outside
7?
of Atlanta, when I was 7, and
Okay.
the clubhouse was 5 doors down from our house. So, as a little rug rat, my parents would say, hey, go to the pool, go hit range balls, go play golf, and kind of
So it
started
was your
hanging out.
babysitter.
Yeah, exactly. It was, drop me off in the morning, pick me up in the afternoon, right? But it was funny because the head golf professional had a son that was my same age. And so he would bring his son to work and we would babysit each other, which, I mean, you probably could figure out what that meant.
Yeah, exactly. Just trouble.
We spent
right?
a lot of time in his dad's office getting reprimanded. But it was days full of play 18 in the morning, golf in the afternoon, maybe a little swimming in between, and when it became time to start working, he hired me on as a cart guy, and a couple of years later, I was on the maintenance crew, weed eating lake banks and raking bunkers and all that fun stuff. And
So you
after
truly grew up in this thing.
yeah. And after a short stint in the pro shop, and I mean short, couple weeks of answering the phone and having to talk to members, I realized I do not want to be on this side of the counter. Get me back outside. So
It's a great experience to learn what you don't want to do.
Yep.
yeah.
So you were playing golf when you were 7 or 8?
Yep.
Wow.
So I'm actually left-handed, but I grew up playing with right-handed clubs. Only
I was going to say they didn't have left-handed clubs, so you had to learn.
Yeah, especially not for a 7-year-old, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
One of my good friends that I'd met back then that lived in the neighborhood, we're still great friends today. He had right-handed clubs, and so he and I would go play 18 with one bag, and I'd hit out of his bag, and just really taught myself more or less how to play the ball right-handed.
How's your game today? You have
I
any
used
time
to
to
be
even
good.
play golf?
I enjoy it more for the camaraderie and the fun than I
Yeah,
do for
yeah.
than for the golf itself. It depends. Some days I'm a terrible golfer.
Yeah, well, I know that feeling. Trust me. But I was going to say, I don't even know. Looking at this resume of yours, I don't even know how you would even find time to play golf, let alone anything else in the world. So you at what point did you decide to go to school for this? And you went to where'd you go? Abraham. I don't even know Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College in Tifton.
Payback.
Yep, Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College in Tifton. It's part of the University System of Georgia. It was a 2-year school.
Yeah.
When I attended back in 1998. But I actually was able to get 2 turf degrees there in 2.5 years. They offer a great 4-year program now, great turf program. A lot of students graduating
Good.
out of there. Still keep in touch with some of the faculty, for internships and employees.
But their
the
2-year program is gone,
was,
right?
What's that?
Is their 2-year program gone?
They still offer it, but then they also offer a 4-year for
they do?
the kids
Good.
that want to extend it. Yep.
Yeah, good.
But basically, like I mentioned, the love of being on the golf course, and the superintendent that I worked for at the time, when I was younger, he had gone to Abraham Baldwin and basically said, "Hey, here's a good opportunity for you, and you look like you show some interest in it." And said, "Sure, what the heck, right?"
Why not? I mean, it sounds like you knew at the age of 7 what you were going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's funny because when I told my dad about it, he said, "What? Why do you want to do that? You're never going to make money in that position." And hopefully I proved him wrong.
Yeah, let's hope so. Yeah. I'm sure you've done fairly well for yourself. It's funny. I've been doing this podcast now for a number of years, and there are a number of superintendents that I've interviewed. One I recall is Josh Saunders at Lancaster Country Club. Same scenario. I mean, basically, mom and dad threw him at the country club and made him, that was his babysitter, and fell in love with the game of golf. And it really is. It's important. I can only imagine that you probably look for employees that also have that passion for the game. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean that's how they get interested in it. I mean, they're a lot like us. They're playing golf when they're growing up, or maybe pick it up after college or something. And I always said the golf industry is different than the landscape industry because employees that work on golf courses, they want to work on a golf course.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier to get that employee that's more interested in doing, the maintenance tasks that we do just for the love of being on the golf course, whether it's playing golf or work.
Yeah, or just being out there every morning, I mean, just the whole feel of it all. So after you graduated, where did you go?
So I did an internship at Noonan Country Club, just southwest of Atlanta for great superintendent Fred Garish, who is now at Highlands Falls Country Club in Highlands, North Carolina. He was a great mentor, really took me under his wing. On the first day, he said, "Look, your internship is for you to learn what you don't know, and I'm going to be the one that teaches you." So, and he did that. He had a great summer. Shortly after my internship, he ended up moving to Highlands. He offered me a job as a second assistant to kind of fill a gap while he was out until they hired a replacement, and continued on at Noonan for about 2 years as the assistant after I graduated college, working for IGM, a maintenance company.
Okay. Yeah, we know IGM.
Yep. Spent a little bit of time up at a property they had in downtown Atlanta, Fort McPherson, which was, it's on an Army base, or it was on an Army base. It's closed now, but, that kind of really showed me how the U.S. government works. Take that for what it's worth.
Or doesn't, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, that's right. But
we might need to stop recording for a minute.
Yeah.
Get that out.
That's a different story for a different time.
Yeah, let's leave that alone.
But it was still a good learning experience.
Oh, I bet.
Because we dealt with a lot of contracts, right? I mean, you think about the U.S. government, everything's in writing for the most part. But we dealt directly with the contracting office since we were a contractor, and a lot of times I was our company representative in those meetings. So, that experience was definitely worthwhile. It taught me a lot.
Yeah, I would say that's probably helped you a lot at Top of the World.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't speak lawyer speak anymore, like I used to back then. But thankfully, I have, people here that do that for me. But, it was still a great experience. And, after that, I moved down here to Florida with IGM for my first superintendent position at a course just south of here in Homosassa called Southern Woods Golf Club. Hale Irwin Design had opened in 1991. I got there in 2001. For first time superintendent, I couldn't have asked for a better property. Very well constructed, very well maintained property, great membership, and just truly had some really good support while I was there.
What was the environment difference from Georgia to Florida when you got down there? Was there any culture shock agronomically?
Oh yeah. Growing up, and working on bent grass in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have an assumption that, Bermuda, it's so much easier. And, we're growing bent grass in Atlanta. We might have 100 days where we're really pushing that bent, right? It's the summer months.
Yeah, it's
hanging. You come down here in Florida, there's no break. I mean, it's 12 months out of the year. In the summer, you're beating it up, you're doing all your cultural practices, and then you get in the winter and all your play, is concentrated in those 6 months when the grass is not growing here in Ocala.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, it's different growing Bermuda, but a lot of growing bent is the same as growing Bermuda during those 6 months in the winter. So,
Yeah.
Um,
So
I
it's
can tell
that
you
much
one
different
thing.
from, I mean, how many, you're talking 100 miles or so, or maybe a few
Mhm.
hundred miles, but it's that
Couple
much.
hundred miles, right?
Yeah. It's that much of
Right.
a difference.
The biggest difference is, you can almost set your watch by the afternoon thunderstorms down here in the
Right.
summer
Right.
months. And in Atlanta you had the humidity and the heat, but you didn't really have the rain. So
Yeah.
we can manage our water a lot better than we can down here. And water management in summer, when a lot of golf courses are getting 37, 40 inches of rain in 90 days,
Yeah.
that's really hard to manage. And you got to be key on managing that water and what you're putting into it versus what nature's providing for you.
Or what nature is taking out of your soils in that case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be a big issue as well. So you were down at that course in Florida. So now you're in Florida. So finish the resume for me.
Yep. So Southern Woods, Sugar Mill Woods, and formerly World Woods, which is now Cabot Citrus Farms. At the time, were all owned by the same person. So after about a year at Southern Woods, I got moved over to World Woods, which is a 48-hole piece of property at the time. Large landscaping, four-sided driving range, 2.2-acre putting green, and that was my first. Stint on a multi-course experience property.
Yeah.
So the way I was the superintendent over about half the property, and then we had a director of maintenance over the other half. And the way we structured it was he and I would rotate weekends. And if it was my weekend, I was over his stuff and my stuff and vice versa. So having to navigate 48 holes of golf before the first tee time at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and then managing 30 people as well, and who showed up and who didn't show up. And,
Right.
you know,
Every day.
it's every day. And
Yeah.
there was multiple times where, it'd be 6:45 and I realized, somebody didn't show up to walk mow greens, and I'm heading back to the shop to grab a walk mower because somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
But it was because of that multi-course experience and, everything, you always have something going on, whether you're airfine 118 or you got a big event on the other 18, there's always something going on. And I really enjoyed it just because it was, it was active. It was, basically changing every minute of the day. There was something new. There was something else to do. And I just really grasped onto it and liked it. And, that's kind of when I moved here with 3 golf courses, it was kind of like, they asked me in the interview, how are you going to manage 3 18-hole operations? I said, it's a piece of cake. It's just like having, 3 nines or 3, hole number ones. It just takes 3 times the people. And, I was really excited when I was offered this job just to be able to show them what I could do.
So you've been juggling elephants your whole career, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's
I took 1 year off. Every summer we do some sort of construction project in my whole career. And I took 1 summer off. I said, I'm not going to do any construction. I'm just going to maintain.
and
I
you're
made it
bored
till
out of your
about July
brains, weren't you?
7th. Yeah, I made it to about July 7th, and I said, "Yeah, we gotta move dirt. Or
We got to do something.
know?
Oh, that's too funny. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that's looking at an operation at the scale that you have? I mean, it can't be easy to be able. I mean, it takes a unique manager. Maybe I should go back and ask you this. Did you ever have any proper managing training? I mean, to manage that level of people, and then not only the amount of people, but the overall operation. Did you ever get trained on anything or is this all basically learned by School of Hard Rocks?
Yeah, yep, exactly. It's on the job training.
Yeah.
I think the industry kind of helps with that. We hear a lot now about work-life balance.
Yeah.
And when I leave here and I lock my office door, it stays here. I don't take it home. There's multiple days where
You actually
I'm
go
looking at
home?
yeah. I mean, there's
That's
multiple days where I look at the clock and it's 5 o'clock and I still got easily a couple more hours worth of work to do. I could sit here or I could go home and finish it, and I don't. There's always tomorrow to do that kind of stuff.
good.
Um, I don't let deadlines bother me. Obviously they're a priority, and I get stuff done before that. But I'm not going to kill myself or hurt the family by putting the company first when it comes to that. I mean, you've got to have a good work-life balance.
What is your family life? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, I assume you have kids.
So after a couple of years of working at Noonan Country Club and talking to the pro shop girl, every day. Decided to ask her out, and we've been married, let's see, 21 years now.
Excellent.
Which is fun. It helps that she understands the business.
She knows what you've been doing.
From it. But two great kids, 19-year-old daughter who just started college Monday, and
congratulations.
Yep, and a 15-year-old son that's studying for his learner's permit. So,
will he be in the golf business?
He just started picking up golf, hitting some balls at the driving range, and coming out and trying to play a few holes in the evenings and stuff with me. So,
you
we'll
didn't
see
get
where
him.
It goes.
You didn't get him on the course when he was 7, like you were.
No, and part of that is when I go home, the last thing I want to do is go back to work.
It's talk about golf. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Does he have any interest in the business?
He wants to be kind of an engineer. That's really what he wants to be. But who knows if he starts playing golf, maybe part of his engineering can be building new golf courses or designing them or something along those lines. So we'll see.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, best of luck to your dog. Where's she going to school?
Just a local college here in Ocala, College of Central Florida.
So she's staying home.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. She's staying home, and she either sleeps or goes to work or goes to school.
That's a good thing for a 19-year-old. Just keep them busy.
Yeah.
Let me go back, and I want to hear more about the Candler soil profile. I mean, that's fascinating to me. So it sounds like when you got there, it was a USGA spec golf course. I mean, the sand was that light, and I mean, is it physically, does it work? I mean, is it drained? Does it perk fairly well? I mean, how deep is it? I mean, give me a little insight as to what that profile, and are the other 3 courses or the other 2 courses of the same profile or no?
So to answer your question, does it drain? It drains too quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like I said, it's a USGA spec golf course.
Yeah. So we had taken some soil samples back then, and it was something like 37 or 38 inches an hour rainfalls, what that native soil could handle. Ironically, though, when it gets compacted, it's about like concrete and it doesn't drain at all.
Because there's a lot of fines in it. I mean, physical structure.
Super fines. Yeah, a lot of fines. So, there obviously management of both of that is, pretty difficult. The Links golf course is similar sand. It's almost identical with it. In almost 20 years that I've been here, the Links golf course has never been cart path only. That's how quick it drains. And that's after, 3-4 inch rainfalls in an hour. You can send play right out within 15 minutes. Right.
Just so people listening know where you are, tell us where Ocala is. Give us
Ocala is middle of the state of Florida, about an hour north of Orlando, and then about an hour from the East Coast and about an hour from the West Coast.
So you're really
sandwiched right between Gainesville and Orlando.
Okay, so you're really dead center. I mean, if you would draw a line down the middle of the state, you're kind of right along that. And that sand and that soil is that fine. That's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, without trying to put you on the spot, and I apologize if I do, but do you happen to have any idea what the CEC is of those soils anymore? I mean, have they grown since you've been there? I hope so.
Oh yeah. That was the whole point of everything we were doing. The soil back then was 0.2, 0.3 CECs. I mean, they're literally zero organic matter.
Yeah.
When they're building, when they're developing, they're cutting 20 feet of that old historical organic off the top and basically leaving you with that native virgin soil underneath. So, I mean, literally no CECs on the soil. So, over the last 20 years, that was the goal, is build them up, and we're 3.5 to 4 in certain spots.
Wonderful.
Which is, that was our goal. And, but again, it took us 5 years, give or take, to do that. And it's still something that we're monitoring and working on every year.
Did you know that when you took this job? Did you know? Did you not look at the soil tests or take a probe around when you got there and say, "Hey, this isn't anything you can grow grass on"? I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in the interview doing the ride around, I saw it. I mean, we have a lot of waste buckers that are just native sand, and I was coming from really world woods, which 18 was similar sand, and the other 18 was kind of like Georgia clay.
Yeah.
So I kind of had some sort of idea of what it was going to take to do it, but being new golf construction like this, I never would have expected it to be, that low of a CEC, that low or that high of a percolation rate. I mean, it just,
And
the
this-
nutrients, holding
Yeah.
nutrients was impossible back then.
I can imagine. Well, how did you do? Did you do a lot of fertigation? How did you keep it going?
I had a
Or you
lot of
just-
spoon feeding,
Yeah.
polymer coated, a lot of organic product,
Yeah.
anything that we could get to just kind of sit in that upper inch of soil and keep releasing.
What was
And-
growing on that property before you got there?
It was mostly peanuts and cattle pasture.
Oh, really? So not a whole lot of stuff that's going to really build any kind of organic matter. But you had said something interesting that they came in when they built it and they took off the topsoil. And did they
Right.
take it off property and sell it, or what did they do with it?
They took it over to the residential lots.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
even think about that. Yeah. So they're
Yeah.
using it to build the
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah, typical cut and fill operation.
Right.
They're cutting the hills down and filling the lows. And, we've done soil bores out here. We've got 60 to 80 feet of just pure Candler sand.
Yeah.
And if you take off, like I said, that last, million years of organic matter in the upper crust, you're left with literally nothing. It's just pure virgin soil.
So you're
Wow.
going to have to start doing this all over again on the new. You're doing like a 9-hole par 3 or so. I don't want to screw that up, but I remember you telling us at the last meeting what all y'all were planning on doing. So you're going to have to start all over doing that. And
So
that-
we're going to be building a 9-hole little pitch and putt golf course. We get a little piece of property that was designated to be a roadway, and then the county said, no, we don't have to build anymore. So we have this little narrow strip of land that we're going to be building a little 9-hole pitch and putt golf course on. It's kind of ironic you asked that, Marshall. I was just on the phone today with our land development office, asking them if they could dump all of their soil strippings in that area. One, to get the organic matter early, but also to kind of kill two birds with one stone, so I don't have to import it later during construction.
Where's that material coming from? What is it?
A lot of it's in new development. So when they go into, like I said, a cow pasture, if they have a neighborhood that may have an export of 10,000 tons of soil, they strip the topsoil off, and that's what they're providing me at this new
So they're
site.
bringing you what would be the topsoil of that other property.
Correct. Yeah. So when
Yeah.
you're pushing dirt, you don't want, clumps of grass and organic.
Right.
It messes up the equipment too much. They can't move it efficiently. So they actually will disc it up, strip it off, and then haul it, to another project or offsite.
I would love to see a soil test, and I will pay for it for you if you don't mind. But I'll have Marshall come down there and grab a sample of that. But I'd love to see what that looks like, and then compare it to what you got. And is that still the Candler sand? Is that still going to go on that kind of a format?
Yep. So that's going to be built on top of the Candler sand. But like I said, I'm trying to build up organic now, before we start moving dirt and shaping and,
Right.
grassing. Yeah.
So what have you learned in the construction side of this? I mean, what will you do different in the construction of this that you might not have done prior to this? I mean, you're going to do more amendments? Will you incorporate that mix down deeper? I mean, what kind of tricks do you have up your sleeve?
Yeah. So the last two greens renovations we've done, we've actually done the Renovate Plus pre-plan. So we would spread it and drag it in.
Oh, good. So
you know,
there's Ecolite in there. So you got some
Correct.
zeolite and you got all minerals and organic. So good.
Yep. So that's what we've done pre-plan on greens
Yeah.
in the last couple of renovations. With this new one, it's only about 6 acres of turf is what it's going to end up being. So, we'll do some soil tests right before and then determine what we need to add after the fact with, whether it's a compost or an organic fertilizer. I mean, we're going to have an organic fertilizer anyways in there.
Yeah.
Compost,
Compost wouldn't be a bad idea if you have a good compost.
Right. And, just anything to get it to where we're starting
Yeah.
with a much higher CEC, to retain that moisture, retain that nutrient load, make our job easier. We can grow it in quicker, get it open quicker, save us water. I have to buy my water, and that's going to be a huge water cost
Oh,
when we go to establish that turf.
course.
So, anything we can do pre-plant, pre-construction, is going to really save us in the long run.
And you're talking wall to wall here. You're not just talking greens and tees. You're talking every inch of that property is going to be
Yeah.
that soil. So, man, that's got to be I assume that they were allowing you to budget enough to get something in there so that you can live. So
Yeah, it's definitely in the budget.
yeah. I would hope
Yeah.
so. Again, I would love to see what that soil, the stuff they're bringing in. I mean, you want to look for red flags, first of all, make sure there isn't anything that is going to cause you problems. Will you be able to actually work that into the soil? Will you be able to rhododendron it down at all?
So they've already started dumping over there, and what they had done originally was strip off what was there,
Yeah.
kind of pushed it into a pile, let it sit it's been sitting for probably about a year. They started bringing in some strippings probably 3 or 4 months ago. So it's been sitting there, and then the conversation we had this morning was, let's get that pushed around, smooth it out, bring in some more. We'll push that around a little bit more with a bulldozer to try to mix it up, and then be able to start construction basically on top of that.
So you're just trying to push it around wall to wall. You're trying to get it all corners there.
We're the whole site is going to be built up 3 to 4 feet on average anyway. So,
right.
This is, like I said, killing two birds with one stone. We're building the site up and bringing in that additional organic matter in the process.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: since you've been there, what has happened to your fertility needs? I'm assuming that you've been able to drop the need for the level of fertility. Has it been significant?
No, it's been really significantly less. As all the golf courses age, obviously, you need less and less fertilizer. And
right.
It's kind of funny. I look at my budgets now versus 20 years ago, and our budget increase for fertilizer isn't through the roof. I mean, especially with the cost of fertilizers nowadays.
Yeah.
We've been able to keep it, with a minimal increase each year just by using less and less.
Yeah.
The Candler Golf Club, for instance, when those greens, like I said, when they were opened, we couldn't keep anything on them. And we were spraying greens 3 days a week with, 1/8 of a pound of N, just trying to literally grow that grass hydroponically.
Right.
And at the time it was 14, 15 pounds of nitrogen annually.
Whew.
And now we're, 2.5 to 3 pounds in a year of total nitrogen on those greens.
Did you come out of that with a lot of thatch?
No, not really, believe it or not.
There just wasn't enough there to really do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, thatch is one of those things here in Florida. If you don't keep up with it, you're in deep doo-doo. And we've always had a really good verification program to try to mitigate that, and good top dressing on top of it to help dilute it out.
And you've been using carbon-based products your whole career there, so you've been helping to digest some of that stuff. How were the greens and tees built? Were they built out of the native sand?
Same stuff, native sand. Yeah.
So you just basically built the greens from stuff on site.
Well, the greens are all USGA.
You brought it in, or was it from your sand?
No, it was brought in.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Spec'd out USGA mix.
Okay.
What we did with the Links Golf Course when we renovated in 2019 was we forewent the peat moss portion of it and actually used a compost that was microbially activated. It's a product called Command that's manufactured here in Florida. And the reason why we used that was University of Florida has had good data on that product helping to minimize the impact of nematodes during new construction. So we had done a few greens at a property that we have down in Clearwater, Florida the year prior. Saw great results. Nematodes were kept at bay or virtually zero. And so when we, went into this project here in Ocala to renovate the Links Golf Course, we kind of, put all of our eggs in a basket and said, we're going to do all 19 greens with it. And, we're sitting here 5 years later and our nematode counts are virtually zero with it.
And you're not going to put any peat into the new construction?
No, we'll probably use the same 90-10 sand Command blend.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, I had a long conversation today with a superintendent in the Midwest, and they were asking about peat. I've never been a huge fan anyway, but all it's really doing is helping you hold some moisture. But if you could get something living, like a good compost, and then amend it with some organic and mineral amendments, you're going to be much better off and save a lot of money. I mean, peat moss is not the cheapest thing you're going to bring in there. But it's really not, and it's not it's not a carbon source for microbes, whereas the compost clearly is, which is why you're keeping the nematodes at bay. You're keeping a biological profile in there, which is good. When do you start this new project?
So the little 9-hole pitch and putt is looking to be right around the first of the year.
Did you tell me that you haven't not done anything? You had one half of a summer off of construction or something?
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. So the plan is to build this 9-hole course next spring, and then
Right.
we shut down the Candler Hills golf course in May to renovate it. And then we'll have about 8-9 months of a break, and then we have a potential 27-hole golf course going. It's shortly after that. So
Wow.
yeah, moving dirt.
And you had time to have children. I'm amazed by all that. That truly amazes me. One of the things I want to embarrass you about is I'm looking at this list here. There's 10 awards that you've collected over the years. Environmental awards, presidential awards, Superintendents Association awards. But you've got a lot of landscape stuff going on too. So you actually have been getting involved in the whole landscaping side of it as part of your professional development. And obviously you're pretty involved in that. So how do you juggle between the golf and the landscape side?
You'd think it'd be very similar, being that you're growing crops more or less on both sides.
Plants,
totally different, two totally different industries.
Yeah.
Golf courses, if you miss one thing, you could be fired tomorrow. Landscaping's a little bit more forgiving.
Oh, that's good.
But the people are different too, whether they're your employee or your customer. They're different in either industry from what we found. But even back when I was just director of golf maintenance, I was looked at as the turf expert within the company. So
Right.
I was brought over into landscaping, literally every week to look at an issue with a yard or a plant, try to help diagnose something. And so, I started kind of getting that continuing education on the landscaping side just to assist me and the company more than anything. But knowing that eventually I would probably end up running the green industry for On Top of the World, like I am now.
The whole thing,
Yep. But it's, you get back to it. I mean, it's all about your people. If you got a good team, you got good managers underneath you, everything flows like clockwork. And I feel like I've got a great team here right now. But, we talk every day, but there's virtually zero hand holding with this team that I've got.
When was the last time you pushed a greens mower?
Oh man, I haven't. COVID, I think.
I was going to say, have you even seen one recently? I mean, again, I'm
No, well,
overwhelmed and overly impressed by the scope.
I used to have my own golf cart. They took that away very quick.
Oh,
So
great.
I don't even have my own golf cart anymore. Yeah, I mean, it's, COVID, we shut down for 6 weeks, and it was the best 6 weeks of my life because
Yeah,
my
I
phone
bet.
wasn't ringing, and I could get on a mower, or I could get on a backhoe or something and go have fun again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the reason why I got in this business.
Do you enjoy the landscape side?
I do. It's a different challenge.
Yeah.
The day-to-day stuff when, Miss Smith's complaining about, weeds in her flowers or something kind of, to them, that's their priority. And that's,
course.
what they want done today.
Right now.
And, they got to realize, I've got 13,000 of those.
Yeah.
You
They're
know,
not calling you though, are they? I assume they're calling a manager under you.
we have a whole department, a customer service department that handles that. And, if it ends up coming to me, it's usually because either A, my guys couldn't figure it out, or Miss Jones is just, ringing that bell as loud as she can.
She's calling the big cheese instead of the little guys.
Yep.
Let me talk to you about labor. I mean, what's the labor environment like now in the middle of Florida? And how many people do you even have on staff now under you? You must have a lot.
Yeah. So I run about 215, on average with my departments. We were short staffed, 3 years ago. A lot of it very different, various different reasons. A lot of it was, the landscape operation, the culture wasn't that great. And, I've always had the mentality, you treat people like people, right? You ask them, how was your weekend? How was your, child's or your daughter's dance class? And you tell them, thank you. You tell them, great job. Simple stuff. You speak to them. Sometimes just a good morning, when you see them clocking in is all it takes. And,
Use their
by
name.
changing that culture, we've been able to retain those employees that otherwise would have left. And retainage was goal number one, and recruitment was goal number two. And the economy started really changing here about 2 years ago,
Mhm.
to where, previously we would have people apply, you'd go to call them for an interview, they'd find out who you are and they'd hang up. And now,
Oh, great.
well, now, that they're actually showing up and they're accepting jobs, and then they're showing up Monday morning when they're supposed to.
They were hanging up because of your reputation or because of the nature of the job?
No, I think it was more because they were, either making more money sitting
Right.
at home, to where they didn't feel like they wanted to work or they didn't have to work. And eventually that came to an end, and people started looking for work again.
Yeah. Have
So
you
at
had?
January, which was 9 months ago now,
Yeah.
we actually were fully staffed within our departments for the first time in about 12 years.
Really?
Yep.
What's and I don't want to know dollars, but what's happened to salaries? I mean, have you had to really be competitive in salaries and really?
We've had to. I mean, that's all part
Yeah.
of it. I mean, that's everywhere nationwide. I mean, our starting wages, have gone up about $4 an hour in the last 5 years, and a lot of that was for us to be able to compete to get employees. Some of it was, we had a lot of new industry being built here in Ocala. Ocala's been exploding for about the last 10 years with
Yeah.
not just home building, but distribution centers and manufacturing, and we're all competing for the same employees.
Yeah, exactly.
The number of jobs is increasing, but population isn't. And so there was about that 8 to 10 year, track where there was more jobs than there were people here in Ocala, and unemployment, was virtually zero. Right. So now we're starting to see people move in, the housing's being built. People are starting to, migrate to Ocala to fill some of these open roles. And we're getting to that point where, finally I'm getting more people apply than I have open positions for, which is great. We haven't been like that for a while.
That must make you feel better.
It's great. I mean, obviously people are your best asset, and it's the most expensive part of any operational budget. So, once they're here, let's keep them here. Let's make them happy. And we as a company, we've always had this, belief that we want every employee to retire from us, whether that's 50 years down the road or 5 years down the road. We want to treat our employees well. We want to have that benefit package. We want to keep them here for as long as we can because it's too expensive to replace them.
Yeah, that's the biggest asset, like you said.
They create an amazing culture. I mean, they're always doing huge grill outs and cooking and taking care of it. And I've been going there for 7 years now, I believe, and it's a lot of the exact same faces. The only ones that are gone are people that had been trained up to become superintendents or turf managers somewhere else. I mean, he's produced a lot of very successful managers in the industry.
And it's funny you mentioned that, Marshall. You'll check my Twitter later because we actually cooked ribs and chicken today for the golf maintenance staff. So
I didn't even see that yet.
I've been standing in front of a smoker all day, but
so you were doing the cooking?
I was doing the cooking. Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah. It's,
I mean,
a little something like that, just a little bit to give back, and it goes a long ways.
It's always good to see the boss behind the grill.
1,000 tacos coming out. I'm like, holy cow, man! I picked the wrong day to go. I was like, man, I was just there yesterday.
We like to eat. We don't miss many meals.
So, Andy, when you're hiring somebody, what are you looking for? I mean, what kind of things, what kind of attributes in a new employee are you actually trying to vet?
A lot of it, we can train you, especially if it's an entry level employee. We can train you how to do anything. The big thing is, are they going to fit our culture? Are they going to be part of our family?
Perfect.
Because we see each other more than we probably see our families, right? So you got to be a good fit amongst the staff and with your manager, personality wise, the whole 9 yards. But if you don't know how to mow fairways, that's not a big deal. We'll train you how to do that. We can teach you. As long as you're teachable, we can teach you to do that kind of stuff. But we all, there's a phrase out there. It's you hire people for what they know, but you fire them for who they are, right?
Right.
So you could have somebody with an awesome resume, top 100 golf courses, they know everything.
Yeah.
but they're just a terrible person. You can't get along with them, right?
And
if
you don't
can't
want
get
them
along
here.
with somebody that you've got to work with every day, I'm probably not going to hire you.
Yeah. How do you vet that though? I mean, if you were giving somebody advice, I mean, what's the secret to sitting in an interview for an hour and then realizing, this person is a fit or not a fit? How do you vet that out?
Yeah, and I like to interview very informally.
Good.
It's not a come into my office and let me grill you for an hour. It's let's hop in the car or let's hop in the truck and let's go ride around and just have a conversation more than anything.
I love it.
Yeah, and I think it makes candidates feel a little bit more comfortable in that kind of atmosphere. When I was looking for a superintendent here a few years ago, I had guys showing up with suits and ties on. First thing I say is, you can take all that off. I'm glad you wore
bring
it,
that here,
but you're not going to need it here. We're pretty laid back. We're going to hop on the cart. I don't want you sweating your butt off,
right?
And we're going to go have a conversation.
Well, it's nice that he came
how it
in
works.
dressed for the position, but yeah, I hear you.
Right.
And how good are your cooking skills? Can you run a smoker in a black
Yeah.
stove?
Who do you root for in football? Yeah. Can you
Right.
cook? Can you drive a Ford?
Right. The important questions. Yeah. What's easier to hire for? Is it the golf side or the landscape side?
I think the golf side, honestly, because again, it gets back to the typically the guy that's applying for the golf maintenance position, either A, is a golfer, has played golf, and they love, being outside early mornings, watching the sun come up. It's kind of just a different culture on our side versus landscaping. Landscaping, nothing against those kinds of people. They do a great job for me, but a lot of them, it's just a stopgap between jobs for them. They're just looking for something short term until they find something better. That some of them stick around for a lot of time, a lot of years, but the majority of the turnover in landscapers is just that person looking for a few paychecks before they move on.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Do you interview everybody coming through?
No, there's no way.
I didn't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got a management. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have an assistant, Travis Anderson, that was with me for quite some time, actually, at the Candler Hills Golf Course. And, he's off doing his own thing now, managing multiple golf courses, which is very good for him. And we're proud of him. But, he came to me one day and he was a little upset. He goes, this guy that you hired, I want to fire. And I said, well, why is that? And he's like, let me just do the interviewing. If I got to manage them, then I should be the one interviewing them and hiring them. I said, you know what? Good point. Have at it.
It's all yours. I'd be happy to give that one up. That's a great lesson, and that's probably a good, practice anyways, if they're going to be managed. How many managers do you have under you?
So we have a head superintendent overseeing all 54 golf holes, and he has 3 assistants, 4 or 5
function as
spray
superintendents.
techs. Pretty much. Yeah. So, and then on the landscape side, we've got 2 superintendents and 4 assistant superintendents. And then of course we've got 8 or 9 crew leaders that also manage crews of, 12 to 15 people each. So
how many crews are there?
We've got 9 crews running. Yep.
Landscape crews. Yeah.
Landscape crews.
And that's all on property. It's all managing the houses.
That's all on property.
3,600 homes.
Yep.
And you're mowing 3,600 homes on a regular
every
basis?
week. Yeah.
Wow.
Every week in house. Yeah. And then our contractors are mowing, another 2,600 on top of that every week.
I got to tell you, dude, I am exhausted just listening to you. It's just impressive. You were saying your former super went out and is managing multiple properties, but I can only imagine this is a wonderful training ground for that kind of an operation. And it's got to be about management as opposed to obviously agronomy or anything else, because, your day-to-day has to be all management, I'm assuming, right?
It is. And I tell the superintendents that I've hired at the time, it's like, look, this is your baby. I'm here if you need me, but you probably won't see me very much. If you, take it and roll with it, you're in charge. And, hopefully, I'd love to say they came here because of me, but, pretty much every person that's worked under me, whether it's been a superintendent or an assistant, has left me to do bigger and better things, which is great. And you can't fault somebody for doing that. selfishly, I didn't want to see him go because obviously that puts more work on me for a little bit, right?
Yeah, of course.
But you got to look at it as like a proud daddy. These were my children. I'm grateful for the time they spent with me. But like I mentioned, Travis came to me as an assistant superintendent. Now he's a regional manager with a management company overseeing multiple golf courses.
Yeah.
Hey, good for him. It's awesome to see, and it's something I can brag about.
That is a testimony to your, to your management skills. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's one of the, it's got to be, and the retention that you have is another one as well, which is pretty. What's your day to day typically like? I mean, obviously it's got to be different every day, but I mean, what's a typical day in your world?
Depends on the day of the week, but for the first thing is you get a big old tall cup of black coffee.
Right. At 6 in the
wake
morning.
yourself up. But
yeah.
I mean, it's coming in and checking, the 100 emails that you got from the night before. Typically I've got a meeting pretty much every day at about 8 or 8:30. And so once I leave, I'm usually not coming back until about 2:30, 3 o'clock to my office. With meetings all scattered in between or just doing property inspections.
Right.
So, I try to spend the last couple of hours every day when nobody's here to kind of close things out and wrap stuff up. Kind of a funny story. I hired a new administrative assistant a few months back, and I think she thought I was part-time for the first couple of weeks because she would never see me.
Saw you. Sometimes that's a good boss to have, right? Right, Marshall?
Right.
No, yeah.
Somebody you don't ever see. How did you ever find time to become the president of the Turfgrass Association? I mean, that's a pretty major commitment of time as well.
It is, and I'm very fortunate to have an employer that supported that, to support my time and my investment back into the community and the industry. We do a lot of that as a company. We have multiple directors and department heads that serve on other boards in their respective industry, and as an employer, we look at it as a benefit because it gets our name out there, and it's good press, to be able to see that. And really watch these other employees grow as they're doing it themselves in these industries, has been nothing but, positive and beneficial for us. But, time's a big thing. COVID helped a lot because of the invention of Zoom and, the Microsoft Teams. And, so a lot of that time where, otherwise we'd be driving somewhere for a couple-hour meeting is now shortened to, just seeing each other on Zoom, which is
20 minutes on a computer screen. I have to say, I mean, I think I met you while you were president. I get around to a lot of associations. I think you did a hell of a job. I mean, they're always well run, and it always seemed like everybody was having fun too, which was kind of neat when I got down there and saw that stuff. I promised you this would go fast, and it has. I am overwhelmed at the scope of your position. I have much more respect now than ever for what you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck. I certainly would be more than happy to help you out, and I'm earnest about wanting to get a sample of that soil coming in. So please take me up on that one. But obviously, if there's ever anything we can do for you, we're always thrilled. But a great conversation, Andy. I appreciate it. And I'm grateful for your time. I know you're a busy man. I can't even imagine that you had time to share an hour with us, but we are very grateful, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Marshall.
For the record, I asked him to send in the list of accolades because I knew he was way too humble and I couldn't keep up with all of them. And I wanted Joel to really understand what all you do besides taking care of some golf courses.
Yeah. I knew a little bit about you, Andy, but when I saw this, I read this morning, right? At like 6:30 in the morning, I'm reading through this. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I haven't done anything in my life. This is pretty impressive. And, and again, I think everybody probably would say, thank you for all the work you've done for the associations and the industry. And, and just the fact that you've been able to, generate this kind of activity and get guys into the industry and get them excited. That's that's something you're going to take with you, forever, and you should be very proud of. And that's the kind of things that we need more of in this industry. So my hat is off. If I had a hat, I would certainly take it off. But again, thank you so much for all your time, Marshall. Thank you. And folks, if you haven't
Thanks, Andy.
signed up for the Earthworks podcast, please do. We'll get somebody maybe not quite as rich in detail as Andy, but we'll be back again next week with another podcast. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Andy, I'm sure you got 5 more meetings before the end of the day. It's now 2:30 in the afternoon. So back to something, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.